It is 6 o'clock. I will call this meeting of the Juneau Utility Commission to order. Roll has been taken. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brown, second by Caniff to approve the agenda. Any questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes of the previous meetings.
So moved.
Motion by Brown, second by Evans to approve the minutes of previous meetings. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public appearances, Mr. Castillo and Mr. Gunderson.
All right. Hi, how you doing? Greg with MSA. Good to see most of you guys again. We have in front of you a memo here, and actually a lot of this is not really new. For those of you that were around then, when we were out at the plant back in April, you remember we talked about most all of this. What's the deficiencies, what do we kind of need to do, and what the expected or estimated costs were. And I think the general summary of that at that point was we have a 40-year-old treatment plant that we need to start addressing in some meaningful way. What spanned between then and now has essentially been waiting kind of on Sensient and those negotiations that Tom and Baker Tilly have been doing. And I understand obviously in a couple weeks there's going to be another meeting talking about more about the specific agreement and some of the things that are in there specifically. But from my understanding and what Tom has told us is that there's been general agreement in how much Sensient would be responsible for as far as costs go from a capital standpoint. He indicated that to me when we talked to him last week. And that is approximately 38%, something like that, 36%, I can't remember the exact number, but it's in here, of the cost of the project, and that there was a general agreement on that. And so Matt will review more of the details of this, but if you flash yourself to nearly to the end of the thing here, the second to last page, page 5, that's kind of allowed us to do kind of a financing analysis, and we've discussed this with Tom, and we're in general agreement upon some of the numbers on here. And so, long story short is we're making an assumption, a good assumption, that you probably get about 1.75 million in normal grant on the project. Now I'll have to say that may change if the federal infrastructure bill is passed. That might obviously give it more access to more grant. That might actually help the city. But that's obviously not assumed on here. And then Sensient being responsible, based on the cost is about 3.85 million, and so the cost to the remaining residents is about 6 million for this project. Okay, and if you work your way through the financing using Clean Water Fund at a reduced rate, and debt coverage, and assuming the number of REUs, residential equivalent units, so basically how many equivalent houses are there? This is the rate impact, and so based on what Tom has told us, the current rate is about $45 a month for sewer. I believe that incorporates the newer rate adjustment that's been happening to get the kind of the utility back into the black, as Tom was telling us. But then for the project, that would add another $25 a month to the average user for that. So that's based on this assumed $11.6 million project that is on this sheet, the bigger sheet ahead of it, that we had talked about. We've kind of line itemed them out into different sections of the project. And so obviously our goal at this time is to be conservative for a budgetary standpoint and include kind of everything we had talked about with the utility in the past. We met earlier with Peter today, and obviously Peter, you can comment, but we think there was general consensus over these are the things that kind of need to be addressed. And maybe some of the discussion is, does all of this need to be addressed at one time? Is there potentially some of this that can be done later? Things of that nature. But to show, so these are the things that have to be addressed at some point, whether now or in the soon future. This is, I think, the basic list. But like I said, if that needs to be phased or what have you, that can be a discussion. But I think our intent tonight, we're not looking for any action. But just kind of, we're at this point of the facility plan kind of being where it is, and we, I think it would be good if we got that submitted, and so things could move forward. If the city wants to in fact move forward on something. But, so, just wanted to get back with you and see you again and have this discussion again and see where things are at, see what people are thinking, and how we kind of wanted to proceed with things here.
Yeah, so if you look at the first page, table 1, this goes back to when we were doing the tour. And we essentially looked at everything based on capacity, condition, and performance. So if you remember back when you were walking through the headworks area, kind of like the stinky area, right, of the whole plant, we were down by the screen, we were down by the chemical. And so we listed out all the different processes that we looked at and then gave them different scores, either based on condition, feedback from operational staff, or based on actual numbers and the Wisconsin code. So that's really table 1 in a nutshell.
That's the first 2 pages.
Yeah. And then table 2, like Greg was saying, is we broke out line items. So, and then in each one there's a description. So it gives some general information of what that upgrade would include. So for example, the screen, we would take out that existing screen, put in a new one. We got costs from Vulcan. That was one of the preferred manufacturers of the screens. There'd be a new wash press, channel modifications. If you guys remember when you were walking down all those stairs into that area, and also in the pumping area, the electrical lines and everything like that were a concern because all the rooms are connected. That's at least for the raw pumping. So this really gives you a decent breakdown of where or how the $12 million plus is allocated in the project.
There's stuff in here like the boiler. We made an assumption on how much stuff may need to be replaced. We don't 100% know that yet. We tried to be conservative. Is it the boiler? Is it the pumping system with the boiler? How much piping needs to be replaced along with it? And maybe that's something that doesn't need a wholesale replacement. Maybe it's just some equipment that can be replaced. I know we were talking to Peter about that a little bit earlier today. And so maybe that's not something that needs to be part of the project necessarily, right? So same with the sand filter. That system still works. It's old. There's some things that are going to need to be addressed in it. And, we assumed a full rehab of it for an estimate of $370,000. So, there's certainly some things in here that could be a discussion about that's not part of a quote-unquote big engineered project. That could be done over time as a maintenance piece if needed. But just a thought on some of that stuff. A chemical building, $1.23 million. We assumed a masonry building. Possibly that could be a steel-sided building, potentially. There's ways to save money, and those are the kind of things that we would look for kind of in the preliminary design when we're really starting to figure out the details of this. The scope and how can we make it more cost effective. But as I kind of was saying at the start, we're trying to be conservative from a budgetary standpoint of how these designs may play out and what kind of gets selected. So that's a lot of words from us, kind of looking for a little more feedback from you guys on kind of direction and how to proceed. One of the final step would be for us on this would be to, okay, we have an assumption that yes, this is what we generally need to do. We would finalize a plan, and then you'd need to hold a public hearing on it to say this is what the Juneau Utility Commission has evaluated and intends to do at the treatment plan, and you allow the public to write comment. So then it would be submitted for review and approval by the DNR. The plan would be. So that's kind of the point where we're kind of at. Obviously, there's things to be hashed out with Sensient, as we kind of know, but
And for the public hearing, we typically do it before one of these meetings, and we have slides up or a handout. We let the public know, and we describe the project, and let them fire questions at us.
or darts, one of the two. Yeah, there you go. That's about the time of the year, right? But anyway, I keep talking when I say I won't, so I'll stop.
So it's up to us to determine if there are things that are on here, whether we would leave them off rather than making them actionable items that we would put in right now. I guess my question in that, if we're going with a new system, why would we attach an old potential broken down piece to a
Mhm.
new system based on the age
Mm-hmm.
of our system?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. So for instance, the boiler system, you're still gonna need to heat that same complex. We're not gonna knock down that whole complex out there with the project. There's a lot of new stuff that's gonna go on, but that's the building where the office and all of that stuff is gonna stay, so you still need to heat it. And so the boiler is it's a kind of a standalone item you can do separate or do with the building. So that's an example. And then the sand filter, we're going to maintain the sand filter system, but there's still some old controls that need to be replaced on it. So those are some of the ancillary items. They are six figured numbers on some of those items, but they are ancillary and they can be done and completely rehabbed as part of a design project, or maybe they're at least not completely eliminated, but maybe they're delayed. Maybe hey, we'll see if we can get 5 more years out of it. I'm just making up a number, but
Can they be maintenance within this project and not a total rehab?
I don't know, Peter. Do you have any thoughts on?
As far as the boiler?
Yeah.
Last time it was serviced was 3 years ago, but as far as tearing into it, seeing if there's anything else wrong with it, we don't know.
How, you know,
I got a quote from Train, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think $4,500 to go over it, take it down and go through everything, which to me seemed like a lot.
how,
They had
how old is the boiler?
I have no idea.
1984, I think the maintenance record
Probably as old
says.
Right,
as the
original.
plant.
Pardon?
1984
Okay,
or whatever. It's something to that effect.
okay, so it's 40 years old.
Mhm.
But that's a cast iron boiler. You don't replace them unless they're leaking,
That's true, that's.
because, if they're gonna put
Yeah,
low
'cause
mass.
you can upgrade controls and all of that stuff
Yeah.
on something like that, you can upgrade all the controls and everything on
Right,
something
they
like
pick
that.
up efficiency and what
Mhm.
have
It
you.
might be
Yeah.
worth
'Cause I
having,
know
it might be worth having
Any
trains.
heating contractor's gonna wanna put in,
So we did get a
We
quote to
got
do
a
that.
quote to rehab the boiler and to put controls to the boiler itself to integrate it in the new system.
that's an old Burnham, isn't it?
Key one.
Key
Key
one.
Wine, okay.
Yeah, so. $4,500, is that the
Well, I've got a
$4,500 or is that a different quote?
I've got two quotes. One is to rehab, go through the boiler, and the other one is to use the new controls we have, hook it up to the boiler. So that, cause now it is you flip the switch on in the fall and flip the switch off in the spring. That's
Cause it
control.
holds temp,
Yeah.
maintains
But
180
this way
degrees.
it takes the outside temperature, monitors that, it saves on LP.
Yeah, it would save a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what it, if that is a cast iron, it's probably worth it. Then you would probably save a bunch of money. Then that could be done under maintenance
Right.
and totally eliminate that $330,000.
And that's kind of what it's more of a maintenance thing that could be addressed as opposed
Yeah.
to assuming we're gonna just rip the whole thing out and put some brand new.
And
in
that
there.
would pay for itself right away and
Yeah.
the use of less LP.
And that's a multi-pump system there, rather than zone valves, so they're using multiple pumps, so
Right.
if one pump goes out, you don't lose circulation of the whole heating system out there, so.
So is that something I should cross off the list here?
Well, I wouldn't eliminate it completely, you're still talking, pushing 40 years there, or are 40 years already.
I mean, and
Well,
those
we need to
are-
have it look, I mean, I don't know, how much were the two quotes to,
That was for the boiler maintenance,
okay,
and that was for the controls. The boiler integration.
so a little over, so $11,000 we're
Mhm.
looking at.
That pump
That's a lot less than 300.
330.
That's a lot less than 300.
Just a little, yeah.
And that might be something that, as part of this process, we spend that money as maintenance. And or we have them do the inspection first, see what they think,
Mhm.
and if everything looks good, then we have them do the other part, and we don't have to spend there still might be some spend as far as money for that, as far as pumps or whatever, depending on Cause I mean, we might add a few zones or something, I'm assuming here.
Maybe
Off of-
pipes,
is-
insulation,
Is
yeah.
the boiler should be is a boiler of adequate size to cover everything we wanna do with the new part?
Unless you're gonna hang that garage onto it,
Well, yeah, I
Well,
mean, that's the other thing, there's a new garage in
if you're
here.
gonna build that garage, or
Yeah.
not. That's
Yeah.
another big
And
issue.
that's
Yeah.
another question that
Yeah.
I had is, do we need a new garage?
I don't know,
Or do
that's
we want a
something
new
you all are
garage, or
gonna
do
have
we-
to
do
tell
we
us
want a
if
new
you
garage,
Need or
or-
want.
Or do we need a new garage?
We need, at a minimum, we need something.
But you
We
can
have-
use a stand of.
We have emergency equipment that's in cold storage.
Yeah.
That at a minimum needs to be in a heated space. So we need room for something that's heated at a minimum. If you wanna redo it, we need to reskin and insulate and heat cold storage.
Yep.
Or add a heated garage.
Okay, well, and that's something that we need to, that's something that
And
needs to be examined, that would
To
be,
have the
that's
space
something that
to
needs to
work
be,
on stuff in winter.
I guess more examined by you to find out what it would cost to reheat the existing space that he's talking about.
Where's that, is that,
The tin shed up in the area.
oh, okay.
Which it leaks, there's air leaks everywhere, it needs to be completely redone. But it would be really beneficial to have a heated space to actually work on stuff in winter. Cause everything's pretty tight in there, as a workshop space, as is.
Could you do it with a regular pole building,
That's what we have currently.
rather than going with the, concrete for the construction materials to match the building?
Yeah, cause that's what we were assuming, right, Matt? It was an extension of a masonry building?
Yeah, exactly. It just attached right onto the front where your existing garage doors are, extended out.
I mean, you could do that far more
Yeah.
cost effectively as a,
I just,
I mean,
as,
it's a thought.
the city seems to really like doing that, but I look at it like, okay, we're gonna have this building for 50 years. You know, what's this tin shed gonna look like in 50 years? You know, when was the public safety building built? You know, and we went that route there, you know, and it doesn't look perfect already. So, like, if we spent the money, did it right away, you know, I think it would really look better for the city, but
Well, I think a 56 by 32 addition is awful extravagant for you to be able to work on your equipment.
And
I think extending that existing garage bay off the front a reasonable distance, you
Well,
can cut this figure into about a third, I would think. This is a pretty elaborate addition here.
that was
you
a
know.
Tim size thing.
That's.
I can't speak to that.
Alright, so then as far as the building,
We can
the
refine
size
that.
needs to, it sounds like maybe what it's made out of needs to be named at the building, but the size of it needs to be re-examined.
I could see you bumping out the existing garage out towards the,
The main bay
towards the
you're saying?
basins to the west and give
Well,
you
I
all the
believe that's
space you
what-
need to,
I believe that's what that was.
you know, I don't
The
think you gotta
width
go.
of the two bays is probably the
Is 56?
56,
Okay.
but 32 might be a bit extravagant long. I could give you 25 maybe, but
we can re-examine that.
Right.
We'll talk to you guys and
Yeah.
I'll own that in.
I'm all in favor of giving them a heated workspace.
Yeah,
As
I
long
don't have
as
a
it
problem with that.
Comes with a reasonable cost, but when we're pushing a, you know, $750,000
Yeah.
onto, for just an addition, that's
No, I just-
pretty tough pill to swallow.
yeah.
I guess from the standpoint, this table wants sewage treatment as number one, you know, and I know that all goes along with sewage treatment, but if we can find a more affordable way to make it happen, you know, I'm all in favor of that.
How do you guys feel about the sand filter controls and the valves and that stuff? That was always something Tim was always wanting to do. You know,
So-
We just
How
put
is-
new media in there.
new media,
Yeah,
yeah,
there's sands in there.
and the new,
So the
Things
thing
at
is,
the bottom,
only 4 of the 16 existing valves, I believe, were replaced recently.
okay,
Those air actuated valves.
yeah,
Which at a minimum, those need to be replaced.
yeah.
But as far as the operations panel, it's working.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it brought into the 21st century and put on a computer,
Right.
but relays and buttons still work.
And every morning you go in there every couple days and you
Yeah, every
backwash
day.
it.
What is the inconvenience of it, Alex, as far as, okay, it's not in the 21st century, but
It's not
Is that the
computer
only thing
monitored,
that's-
so say if something were to alarm or not work right, it's basically you get one alarm saying sand filters are, something's wrong. So if it was all completely computer monitored, you could maybe see certain aspects of it and control it differently. But it's not gonna, I don't know. It's,
I mean, a lot of the rest of the plants is you can monitor it from where you are, right? You can see what's going on, you can see the lift stations, you can see all that. That's one of the pieces of the system that's not on the master SCADA system, is that sand filter.
yeah.
How long ago were the 4 valves that were changed?
Like,
Is that done when the media was put in?
no.
Before that?
Yeah.
So odds are now we won't find the other matching ones so we'll be
Huh.
changing
So-
those.
They're stuck
changing
on a
those-
boat halfway to
Yeah,
China or something.
changing those
Yeah.
4 at the same time. I
Plus,
think,
you'll need
I think that's
valves
an,
with feedback, right, for,
Well, yeah.
so.
I think that's an important
Yeah.
aspect of the operation of that plant, to get that updated.
And they're all air actuated. I don't know if to go to a motor operated,
You can do all that, yeah.
how that works, if you integrate it differently, what's better, what's not. I don't know.
I mean, it is important to say that that's pretty essential in meeting your phosphorus limits, is that sand filter.
Yep.
It's a pretty
Oh, it is.
essential process out there.
How much pneumatics do we have throughout the plant left there?
Sand filters is all pneumatic.
Just that,
That's the main one.
the pneumatic.
Heating system has gotten away from air too, right?
Well, the FE tank is on the plant water tank,
Okay.
but that's not real pneumatics. That's the big one. The level control for the sand filters.
We know about that.
Yeah. You could go to a radar system, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're keeping sand filter controls,
Yeah.
yeah,
Some
or at least replacing those valves.
Some aspect of
some
it.
aspect of it for sure.
That chemical building, now we're pulling everything out of the basement, putting it up on grade.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It'd be that, there's a storage tank in the ground, there's the chemical pumps down in the lower area. All that would go up into a building, so you'd have a tank that you could see when you're standing inside there, and then the pumps would be accessible right there.
And ventilated, so it's not so corrosive. you know,
Yes.
what have you.
Yeah, there'd be containment in case of spills and stuff like that.
Sure. That's a good move.
I mean, that's another one. I've done several chemical buildings that are steel-sided buildings, heated steel-sided buildings, and they work. I mean, it is a consideration masonry versus steel, you have that same thing, but it's something that could be considered. We've done them.
What's the cost difference, masonry versus steel?
We typically figure masonry's like $400 a square foot, and steel's more like
You could do
150 or 200 square foot.
Twice as much.
Yeah. But then you get an architect to come in and tell you, well, the masonry's gonna last you twice as long, you know, but.
the excess flow basin, if you guys don't remember, so you have 2 clarifiers right now. During high flows, they're overloaded, so there's an excess flow basin, and flow can be directed to that, but it has to be done manually. So we're gonna put a valve vault with flow meters, and it would be all automated, and so you would be able to protect the clarifiers from high flow events.
I think you guys have said you've used that maybe twice, those flow basins. There's probably been a lot more events than that where it probably should have or could have been used. It probably exceeded the clarifier capacity, but just because it's all manually operated, you know, you're only gonna do it when you absolutely need it, are notified of it. So when it's automated, where we guess it would be probably used a lot more than what it is now. So otherwise, by code, it would say we should have another whole clarifier out there, another whole clarifier tank. So this is a kind of the solution to that is to utilize those more frequently, so you don't technically need that third one.
Is the electrical service of the building getting upgraded, upsized? I see you guys got a transformer on here.
I believe so, yes. You remember from what size it was? I don't remember offhand, but
Yeah.
one of the issues is he was kind of alluding to it, is where the location of a lot of those MCCs and panels really by fire protection code are not in the right spot. And so we need to replace, relocate, and kind of segregate off a lot of that electrical equipment. A lot of that fire protection code got updated in the mid-90s, late 90s. So a lot of the stuff that's from the early 80s was not built to that standard. And so to kind of meet that NFPA code, we have to relocate and upgrade a lot of that stuff.
Relocate to where, do you remember?
There's a couple spots. Well, so well, one of the things we don't 100% know. There's a couple of potential spots. One of the things we wanted to do was, those stairs that go down to the way down to the basement to where the pumps are. If we can put a wall there and kind of segregate off that space from that electrical room, we can probably leave a lot of it in that space there. The other potential spot is if the blowers mostly come out. If we go to the oxidation ditch that's got drives that move paddles instead of blowing air, that whole blower room, and if we're going to take the generator out of there too, make that outside, that's a whole room there that could potentially be a new kind of main service electrical switchgear room there.
So you're gonna be moving a lot of it to the west side of the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a 1200 amp service that's out there. I remember right. I don't know how big a tub you got feeding.
750.
But our demand should actually be lower
Should be
with all
lower.
this new equipment.
It
so
may not be bigger. I don't remember offhand, but
I mean, it's nice to have a fudge figure in there,
Right.
but I almost think we'd be going the opposite direction with all the
Right.
equipment you're proposing.
right. If anything, if it did go up, like I'm not saying it is, it'd be mostly up to a 1600 maybe. But like you said, I bet the demand would probably go down.
All the blowers right now are constant speed.
Those big
Right,
blowers are just
so
running.
the oxidation ditch would all be on drives. You could turn out, we talked about when I was here a while ago with Tom Monkey, we talked about the 3-ring ditch. So you know, let's say your load and your flows are low, you could operate the 2 ditches or the 2 rings,
Yeah.
leave that outer one empty, and you don't have to run drives on that end.
So you're proposing putting the generator on the west side of the building, on that, outside that equipment room where the.
Do you remember where we were thinking about locating it,
Where
Matt?
the shafts were all going
So,
down.
yeah, if you're facing that big crane, right?
Yeah.
It's to your left.
To the east side.
Yep.
East side of the building.
Which way is north?
Well, it would be probably just on the north
North
side.
is the stairway going down in the basement.
Yeah.
So it'd be on the west side, wouldn't it? You're talking about using that room with the shafts?
Maybe. Otherwise, maybe where the blowers are.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I thought the blowers were being eliminated with that.
Well, right, and that's where we might repurpose that room. It'd be a bunch of empty
Okay.
space then.
Yeah, that would all be cleared out. The generator would be moved outside.
That'd be east, yeah.
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 That's
okay.
I thought you were talking about the west side of the building where you're talking about moving the
Not out in
electrical
front, no,
panels
not
into
out in
that.
front, I don't
Okay,
think.
all right.
Between that side exit or side door and
Yeah,
the crane there,
right.
just to the west of the transformer.
Mm-hmm.
Your calendar here then, target dates is purely just to keep this moving then, regardless of what changes we have in mind.
Yeah, and I mean, the other date that's out there is the end of September 2022 date is when the next funding cycle deadline is for us to get the plans and specs and funding application in. And so that would keep us on that pace, so we would have the time to get that done before then.
So if we lock in on what we're doing right now, can we go back to the trough if the government expands the program for infrastructure upgrades and whatever, or are we locked in?
Well, I would, and that's kind of why I think that we don't necessarily eliminate anything from this plan. Some of these ancillary things like the boiler and that stuff, the DNR is not necessarily going to care about any of that. That's nothing to do with the plant directly. And so that's where I think going in with a higher number in the plan is good from that standpoint. And then, you know, if the grant's higher, then yeah, we get more grant out of it. And that's part of it. I've been thinking too is, you know, we move ahead, we can have design, plan, the specs ready. Then, you know, by the time that happens, then we would have a much clearer picture about where things are going. And maybe it makes sense to wait to bid it. Maybe it makes sense to do it right away, you know, so you can time that grant thing up as well as possible.
Will you be able to segment those bids anyway, to be able to break down and pick and choose what you want to go with, right?
Yeah, if we wanted to do it that way, yeah, we could do it that way.
I mean, that wouldn't lock you in
Right.
totally. You could take advantage of the bigger number
Yep,
to get everything, all
Yep.
the outside funding
yep,
that you're able to get,
yep,
and maybe
Yep.
more.
yep. And there's certain ways we could segment this bid to do that,
Right.
to break it up as.
I mean, we gave you some suggestions here
Right.
tonight.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
just those half a dozen items or something
Yep.
would make a world of difference. But I agree with you, if, you know, if the bottom line or the bigger dollar is to our advantage, is securing outside grant money, as long as we're not locked into those particular items, then we can take that grant money and pick and choose. I
Not
guess.
locked in till you bid it and award it, right?
Right.
And even then, you could change it, but you won't get the value, but still,
Just-
yeah.
Just kinda scares me from what I've been seeing now in the market, though. This probably isn't a good time as far as material costs for all of this stuff. We're gonna be, I bet you're looking at least 20% more than what you did
Mhm.
last year at this time, if not more than that.
Well, and we
I see it in my trade, you know,
cross our fingers, maybe a year from now, if we bid a year from now, maybe things have straightened out a little bit.
and let's hope so.
I don't think so. I think they're gonna keep going for a while.
Wires quadrupled in cost,
No.
nuts.
But even at that, it's not like we can say, well, because the cost of materials has gone up, we're not gonna do anything.
No,
'cause
it doesn't
that's-
make our problem go
that
away,
does
sure,
not
oh,
make
you're
it
right.
go away at all. So
Absolutely.
to continue to say, well, what do we do in order to keep going, you know, I guess meeting this requirement and, you know, going ahead with this and saying, hey, we are going to get a new facility, we have to, for the city of Juneau's sake, and, you know, here's what we're doing to let people know. I think it only behooves us to continue to move forward with it, and then work out the details of it, and continue to ask the questions, so,
Sooner or later, you gotta bite the bullet.
yeah.
Who's to say it's not gonna double, you know, if you win, it can double again.
Yeah.
It's just the way.
Inaction is action, and that's just as deadly for us right now. I personally would like to see us continue to move forward with this as the schedule has it planned here.
I think we have to.
Talk about the rate structure again. You said with the new proposed rates that we have,
Mm-hmm.
the base rate's gonna be $45 without the plant?
Yeah, so my understanding is, I got numbers from Tom of your new rates to keep you guys back in the black.
Right.
And that did not include any of the upgrades at the plant.
When you say base rate, what do you mean?
What's going to our users?
That's what we're calculating, the total average rate is for the average homeowner,
Right.
$45. So that's base rate plus volume, that's the total.
That's base rate per month,
Right.
so that's already about quite doubled what our base rate is now.
So you guys just approved, or you were?
No, that we're living on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right now, if you're a residential customer's base rate for his water, sewer, and electric bill is just under $50 a month. And I'm thinking 2/3 of that, or better than 2/3 is water and sewer out of that $50 a month. So now we're hanging another 45 on top of that, plus another 25?
No.
He's shaking his head, yes.
No.
Well,
He's saying not adding 45 and then doing another 25. The total now is
I'll-
45.
yeah. Of your 50 that you just said, that was broken up
Right,
into three,
right.
the sewer portion,
Was 50 standalone, new rate.
yeah, 45-ish, yeah.
45.
Yeah. And then with,
Plus usage.
No,
Yeah.
that includes usage.
that's total.
That's average.
It's an
That's the
estimated,
average
it's an
user.
estimated average based on the average user.
What I'm talking
Okay.
about,
Yeah.
the $50 a month right now, I think it's 49.
Mhm.
That's before you use a gallon of anything or a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
what you, just to have your
That's your
meters,
base.
that's what you have your meters in place, it's gonna cost you just shy of $50.
I don't know what the new
That's everywhere.
sewer only
That's
base rate
electric,
is.
water, and
Yeah,
gas.
well, according to this, the average, when we got was 42.27 for
That's
the average.
proposed. That's proposed.
Yeah, and we have 45, so yeah, approximately the
And
same,
the
yeah.
present rate is 41.29.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we took average
Not that
water use
No.
to help come up with that number. So it has your fixed and your volume
Okay.
rate in there, yeah.
Alright.
So, and then the extra 25 would reflect that as well.
Yeah,
That's with water use.
okay.
And when would that, when would the extra 25 kick in?
Not to the end of the project. Well, it wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have a debt service payment until the project is about done. I mean, it may make sense to do it in chunks, and so you don't do it in one big one.
Absolutely.
So, that's all depends on how the commission wants to do that, but you're not making a debt service payment on the loan until the project is basically done. So by the time you think about that, that could be 3 years from now.
So I guess the savings grace, and one of the things we can use as a selling point to the public is the plant's already outlived itself twice. You know, when that plant was built and
Yep.
put online, they figured an estimated life was 20 years at that time, so we've done pretty well with, the caliber of construction that we put forth at that time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right.
Yeah, but that rate's still. So we didn't let that rate still.
No.
As a commission, I think we just need to, every so many years, just take a look at our rates. And, that way we don't fall behind like we did, or make changes ahead of time, you know, so.
It was always such a tough thing to do, Nick, when you got a partner like Sensient, you know.
Oh, no, I
It just
get that
complicates
too.
the matter, you know.
No, I get that.
You know. Inflationary increases are great, you know, but when you're dealing with a user that's consuming almost half your plant, you know, it's a little tough to make those changes.
Hence the reason of a contract.
Yeah, that,
That's why that contract's important, so you don't
Yes,
get
it is.
sworn into
Absolutely.
this situation.
Yes, it is.
that should have been mopped up a year ago, so.
So is there any action we can take here?
I think they're just looking for guidance, right?
I see the public hearing is, you know, your target date is next month.
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, we just, continuing on, we would, if there's this general consensus to move ahead on the schedule, we would take care of getting it posted in the paper, help you get the notices out, and have it then. If that's too soon, or you wanna do it, whatever, it's up to you guys.
You're standing still, you're taking a step back.
Yeah, what's too soon about it? Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, we were hoping to wrap up the plan, get it submitted, and then during preliminary design, that's where we can really hone in a lot of the fine details of construction of materials and all that stuff.
Do we need to figure anything for the blower, or the or the boiler, or the sand filter, and where exactly the generator's gonna go, and then come back again, have that, that refined cost estimate, okay, here's the scope, true scope of the project, move on.
I'm all for moving.
The consensus for moving?
Okay.
You don't have a choice.
I can hear the rattle. Everybody's going.
Gotcha. That's a motion right there, you hear
Yeah.
the rattle, right?
I'm showering out at Nick's place.
Would we propose to have the public hearing here, or would we do that somewhere else?
I think the community center, cause
Okay.
you might have a crowd for something like this, so.
Okay. we
Need
will
to
plan.
organize it and construct it with them based upon what they have going on.
Sure. And if it needs to be a special meeting or a special time or whatever, that's fine, whatever. Like I said, we typically try to do it right before the.
The holidays.
But no, right before a commission, like a meeting, right?
Just stole your present.
I got you a present, it's a wastewater plant.
That's the gift that keeps on
Yeah.
giving.
Yes, they do. Everybody wants to give to the wastewater treatment plant. So
Well, I
that's fine.
appreciate it, guys.
Okay.
Thanks for the feedback. We'll proceed and we'll plan.
We'll be back on the 15th.
Yeah, I think we're gonna plan to come when Tom was here, just to provide any more information that's necessary.
That meeting is gonna be with Sensient,
Yes.
so, hopefully they keep going.
Yeah.
When they show up. They
Yeah.
were the problem last time,
Okay,
so something came up and they couldn't come, so I mean,
sure.
they're the ones that seem to have a slight problem with the present contract, what proposed, so.
Okay.
But we need to have a contract that's, covers us in the interim until a plant is built, is the big problem.
Mhm.
The contract that I have is for after the plant is built,
Okay.
and that doesn't,
We were promised that would be in place by August.
Mm.
we need to get that, so Sensient knows where they're at, and their levels are there. I mean, I looked at the levels, and I keep thinking 37 and 20, and all of those will kill our plant.
Not to put words in Tom's mouth, but the way I was reading that seemed to be that, and this may not be the way the commission wants to do this, but then when I got forwarded that today, when Matt, you sent that to me, I was looking at it. It seems really like the limit is almost 5, and Tom was trying to do was just surcharge him anything more than 5. Was the way he was approaching it. It seemed to be the way. That's why I was reading it.
If you look at Exhibit B, they broke it down that way. So at the very far end, if you look at the bottom of that table, how Tom was explaining it was like that point should never be reached because the surcharges would be so high.
It'd be so
for
punitive.
those items. Yeah.
Basically, the way I was reading and understanding
Those
it.
were the numbers we came up with, though.
Okay.
Exhibit B. He just handed it to us as 37's your limit, like,
Okay.
Yeah.
what?
That's weird. Because
Yeah.
when we were first, I remember talking to Tim about this, because the old agreement was 20, right? And we had said, well, we'll just change it to 7, like make it a domestic strength and leave it at 7. So,
Yeah, I think what might have happened too is when I was doing some of the projections, I was using their historical peaks, right? And in the past, they were all over the place. So if they said, we're gonna give you 5, right? And then, but their historical peak is at 5, then it's like, well,
37.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so in that case, it would be like, 25 is what I would be predicting as a peak day event. So we can work with Tom too, and I think a lot more will come out on the 15th too. So, because right now, Sensient, they're doing pretty well, right?
They are.
Yeah. So, which is good for everybody.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
I think that's the first Monday. The 6th.
Are we keeping the public hearing as the 6th of December?
We could do a different day. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Don't make it too tight,
Yeah. Right. Up to the meeting.
yeah. And then-
I've been to a lot of meetings. Sometimes a lot of people come, and sometimes nobody shows up. You never quite know, But anyway, we'll work
We'll
with
be in
Lori.
touch
And
on the date then.
so is it sounds like maybe do it a different day than the regular meeting?
Will this number be in the
I think they could extend the regular meeting out to a point where we'll have to have a lunch.
Well, you can still have your meeting in
Yeah.
a certain amount of time, and this is what's given for that public hearing.
This time of year, you got 2 council members that are sitting at this table, and there's committee meetings, so you're gonna have to find a date that doesn't conflict with the committee meeting, so that they
If you
can
do it
be
a
in
different day.
attendance, yeah.
If you move it up earlier before the December 6th, if you were to move it for second, third, fourth, that time frame, I think you'd have more success. potentially.
But we got budget hearings and what have you too, budget meetings.
We just got one of those and that, yeah.
We did it at the 6th, what we did at 6, like at 5 o'clock.
Well, if you don't want anybody there, then I guess that's fine.
Well, I am.
Yeah, you get them when they're hungry, they might be a little bit worse.
Certain pizza.
Yeah.
I like a user-friendly meeting, like at 6:30 at night
Yeah,
for the
sure.
public to be able to,
Sure.
then you can do your dog and pony show and present facts
Sure.
and figures,
You-
because you're gonna have some people that are gonna have some questions.
We'll throw out some dates to Lori and just work it out here in the next week or so. Because we gotta get the notice out with enough time.
She can work with City Hall in regards to the other meetings.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, monthly business. Approve the vouchers and the checks.
Second.
Motion by Canov, second by Brown to approve the checks and the vouchers. Any discussion? If-
Question, Peter,
Yep.
distilled water for $300 and some odd dollars. Is there a cheaper way of buying distilled water?
Not at 48 cases of water at a time.
Okay.
It lasts for quite a while, yeah.
Anybody else? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Prior month income statement. Anybody have any questions or concerns? If not, we'll move on. Council acts affecting utility. Resolution 51, 2021, accept the letter of resignation from Sean Hart, Clerk Treasurer. Wow.
I wasn't sure if that affected us or not directly, too directly,
Well,
but it does
We,
indirectly,
we,
so
we do pay part of his salary.
I
Yep.
thought I would put that in.
I was a little shocked when I saw the, in the agenda. But
He will sadly be missed. Sean did an excellent job for us in the short time that he's here. I think all the department heads recognized he was easy to work with, and very knowledgeable, had a vast array of experience underneath his belt, and we can only hope we find another candidate like him to replace him. We wish him the best, and it's kind of a, rather than a career change, it was kind of an adventure change, I guess. We head up to Alaska to take a new position, whatever.
maybe we had an application one time from somebody from Alaska.
Lineman.
For a lineman.
Way back when.
All right, moving on. Consumption and loss. Anybody have any questions, concerns? If not,
Where are we at with our leak detection, Peter? We doing anything this year anymore?
Yeah, I was in contact with him a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
They're gonna be here sometime this month or next month.
Great.
They're just kinda wrapping up all their other things that they've been doing.
all right. delinquent accounts, customers. It'll be going up for a while. Sorry to say. Utility accountant. Lori.
Okay, the community contributions, I have put a page in your packet that explains, what we've done so far, which hasn't been much. I've not gotten any other requests in for people requesting any money or anything from us. So we do have, what, $4,100 that hasn't been spent yet. So I didn't know if there's anybody that has any ideas for what they might wanna add in to the contributions. If we're gonna be doing the Christmas lights.
Nothing for Shop with Tops or anything like that you received?
No, those programs, I've not gotten anything. I don't know if they're not doing them because of the effects of COVID still, or, but I've not had anything cross my desk.
So what do you have left for the 2021?
$4,100.
And is that split?
That half would be ours and half
Yeah,
would be
okay.
that we could get.
I know with the monies we've collected for recycling materials down at the city garage, I think we got our cost covers for the lights, but we don't have anything figured for the electrical for those lights. So you'd have a hookup at every pole.
Yeah, we're doing those tomorrow.
So where are those funds coming from?
Scott purchased all the equipment. We just assembled them today, so it would just be labor costs. Our labor was gonna go under the city's accounts,
Okay.
so I guess I could figure out, I gotta do a rough estimate quickly what.
I mean, we could indirectly, we send that money to the CDA donates it towards the lights and hookups. It would come back here to subsidize the cost of, the labor and equipment costs to do it, so.
Equipment, you're probably looking at close to $800 to do it, to $1,000, $800 to $1,000.
All of them?
It's only gonna take 20 minutes, a pole, plus equipment.
That'll be metered then through the streetlight circuit
Correct.
and triggered through the streetlight circuit.
Well, no, cause those are all individual photo eyes, there's no contactor on this, they already have purchased a separate photo eyes for each of those Christmas elements.
That's where you're out there fixing them all the time. Would it be better off putting a contactor at the head end, triggering it by the photo eye, and then we wouldn't have the hassle of all those photo eyes?
I mean, it's, the ones on Main Street are already on separate photo eyes, and now that we have that GFI thing corrected, that we were having all those GFI tripping out last year. Now that that's been corrected, we haven't had too many issues with them. So, I think they already got them purchased too, those eyes. Dusted down ones.
I'm just asking. Simple is better.
I mean, to do a cost of a contactor at that, I mean, you're probably looking at $300 to redo that, which isn't much.
But you get a few hours of,
But then we would have to replace all our fixture eyes to the shorting caps.
you wouldn't have to.
I just
suppose you don't have to.
No.
It's just one more maintenance thing you'd have to do down the road though. I mean, eventually you could change them out to sorting cabs.
All right.
What you're looking for right now, though, is to go with the $1,800 for CDA and give them for lighting and Christmas lights, is what you're saying.
Well, you got $4,100 left.
1,800 of it is CDA, it was economic development,
Oh, I see that, okay.
so
Yeah, you'd have to
the
expand.
difference of it is,
You'd have to expand that number, Cheryl, yeah.
have to expand that number.
That included the Christmas lights though too, right? The $1,800, and they already have the Christmas lights?
Well, that was a donation towards it, and Scott had reported at a DPW meeting that between the monies that he had in the account and what they've garnished for recycling materials, they had enough to buy them all, but he never reported on materials for hooking them up and what
Right.
have you, so.
But what I'm saying, like last year we contributed $1,800
Yeah.
towards that.
Yep.
But didn't that include the cost of the lights?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the
Yeah,
Christmas lights.
Just the Christmas.
So
That was-
what
okay.
we gave them and what they got from recycling covered the cost of just the Christmas lights that they purchased.
Okay.
So I don't know where he's pulling his rabbit out of the hat, where he's getting these monies to do what he's doing.
Yeah, and I don't know what he did as far as the outlets and boxes, if that just went under, I don't know what accounts he's got it
What kind of additional cost is it for those?
to the outlets. I mean, he already purchased them, so. I don't-
Right, but do you have any idea what the
What that
dollar
would
amount would
cost.
be if you were to purchase, I mean, just out of,
What was there, 17 lights?
be that as it may, we have $1,800 that we could say, however you use it to help defray the cost of inputting
Right.
those Christmas lights, period. So there you go.
That would-
Whatever you did
That's
with
fine.
however you
That's
bought them.
Yes, right. To do that, just send the
I'll give
1,800
him
to
the
the
1,800,
CDA.
cause I'm sure you're looking at probably another, what,
$100 a pull?
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
you're probably
easy.
looking at,
That's what is going through my head there, that's why
I was thinking, I had calculated 1,200 for just what he bought already, so. If you gave him the full 1,800, I mean, my estimate of my labor with 800 with the equipment, since their equipment prices are so cheap.
Do we have anything else that you know of, Lori, that CDA funds can, or economic development funds can go for, that you know of as far as any needs?
No, I don't have anything else. I looked back a few years of what we've done in the past, and those are pretty much it for the economic development.
rec department's always looking for help. too,
Yeah,
so-
that's down in community contributions,
Yeah.
though, where we do those
Right.
generally. I move to put $1,800 towards the power processing for the Christmas lights through CDA.
Would that be like a reimbursement type thing, because they already did
Yeah.
the bill of the equipment?
Yeah,
That's what it would have to be as far as however they put it that way.
he's gotta charge him out to some account. I don't know where he's getting his money from, cause he didn't get any clearance from us to do anything, unless he was giving us figures that included that stuff, but he never said anything about it, you know. I was assuming he was gonna pair up with you, and then you'd come to us and, hey, what do you wanna do here? Cause, you know, the majority of the labor is yours, you know.
No, he just brought a box over full of equipment. We assembled everything, so.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Cheryl, second by Dick to contribute $1,800 to the CDA for Christmas lights
And hookups.
and hookups. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Can we set something aside in case they have these things, or?
So that would be, instead of charging it to an account of theirs, bill them
Yeah.
for that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, sometimes when we do work, we log our labor under their accounts instead of doing a separate billing, but since
There
We're gonna
should
have
be,
funding for that this year.
yeah, there should be a separate line item or a separate,
This has to go through CDA though, does it not?
no, it should, all we are is the conduit. They just use the CDA, you gotta use the chamber or the CDA for that contribution. You only have two avenues.
The Dodge County Food Pantry, Lori, is that the gathering source? Is that what we consider the Dodge County Food Pantry, or where is the Dodge County Food Pantry?
I honestly don't know.
Maybe Dodge
No,
County
that was
Food Pantries in
Beaver Dam.
Beaver Dam.
Yeah.
Okay.
The gathering source
That's
is Reesville. I mean,
the
we
blue
can.
one.
Blue in now.
Yeah,
It
it's
is,
a blue
yeah,
one.
it's where
The blue in.
Oh, yeah?
that's where their building is.
Yeah.
Are there any needs for the rec department right now that you're aware of?
There,
What kind of needs do we have?
there's stuff there that they've got on their wish list that, as you well know, theirs was kinda cut. I mean, I'm not promoting the splash pad any more than what they're gonna raise funds for or whatever, but there's just for general equipment and whatever, they're always looking for some additional money for that kind of stuff, soccer field.
Is there something
Goals.
specific though that you know
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, I probably got it written down in another file or something like that.
Cause I don't remember seeing anything for budget this
No,
year either,
no.
so.
There was no big ticket items, but it's just that smaller stuff is stuff that they always like to.
I enjoy seeing the money go to them.
I do too. I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, there's
Did they have
some
shop at
specific-
the top slash?
I would love to see something specific.
Shop at the
They
top?
didn't ask our help.
Did they have
once.
shop for cops last year?
They didn't have,
I
they
don't
didn't
think they
help
had
ask
anything
our
last
fire
year.
department to help them,
We
so.
did give them $400 last year. I don't know if they had that or not, but if they held it.
We can still check on that and then come back next month if we need to for that and give it retroactive if necessary.
You, yeah, you,
And then for, recreation department, we did $800. And the food pantry was $700.
I would move that we give $900 to the Juneau Rec Department,
I'm sorry, did you say 900?
900 please.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Cheryl, second by Ross to give $900 to the rec department. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
I'd like to see us give $700 to the Dodge County Food Pantry. I would so move.
I have a motion to give $700 to the Dodge County Food Pantry.
I'll second it.
Motion by Cheryl, second by Bart to give $700 to the Dodge County Food Pantry. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. That leaves a balance of $500.
700,
Seven.
My math is off?
Yeah, you got 700 too.
Okay, my math is bad. They didn't have that math when I went to school.
Get the abacus out, man.
Huh. All right, anything else, Lori?
Nothing. That we had for, compared to last year, no, there's no other additional.
Okay. And then on the Sensian contract, we can't do much with that. So,
Yeah, when I was talking to Dan about the agenda, we just wanted to make sure it was on there in case anybody had any questions or wanted to have discussion.
So we have a meeting scheduled the 15th.
Yes,
Yeah, 2 weeks from tonight. And it's gonna be at 4 o'clock here.
4 o'clock here.
Cynthia
will be there at that meeting.
they're the ones that set the date.
They set the last one, did they?
Well,
I think they agreed to the last one, but then,
yeah, they agreed. We picked a date and I guess they agreed to it and then they
And
canceled.
then something came up
Yeah.
and they
So-
couldn't make it, so.
All right.
Do we send them a bill if they cancel this one?
They canceled this one, somebody else will take it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. All right. You have anything else, Lori?
we did the lamp recycling again, just a couple weeks ago, where we send letters out to businesses and they bring in their extra, or dispose of their lamp bulbs and, or, any computer equipment, that type of thing. We didn't get that much. I think the spring was a lot more response than what we had this last time.
How do we notify them?
We sent them a letter.
We get a letter. I think what's starting to happen is a lot of our businesses have now converted to LEDs. There's no ballasts like we always have, and some light bulbs that need to be recycled out. So it's good to see that it's getting less and less.
What were we charging for that, or what are we
There's
presently?
different rates for every
bulb.
bulb, so I couldn't even
We
tell
get
you.
a price list from the lamp recyclers, and we just forward that on to them so they know how much it is, and then we tally what they bring in and we invoice them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's different every
So
single
it's,
one.
Okay,
That's all I got.
okay. Electric superintendent, Nick.
Automated pet care's new service and transformer is installed and completed. We energized it, tested it, got the rotation figured out. Now we've de-energized it and we're just waiting for United Electric to finish up everything on their end to then re-energize it and get them up with some power. So I know myself, Scott, and I think Peter might have talked a little bit today. There's been a little bit of concern with that ditch that they got there. They're ditched out between the building and your fire hydrant. They ended up,
Mhm.
I think they hit the valve, right?
Yeah.
But the way they have that dug out is gonna leave a lot of exposed pipe for the hydrant and the valve, and undercut the transformer quite a bit. So we forced them to put in a 20-foot extension on the culvert, and I don't know if the city can do something to maybe look at that. If it makes sense to run a culvert from that fire lane driveway to their entrance driveway, which is I think 175 feet, because the way they got that ditch dug, it's pretty aggressive.
Mhm.
And if anybody goes off that that shoulder, resident, it's not gonna be good.
That's
So,
along Western Avenue?
yeah, if you guys have time, drive past there, and I don't know if the city can force them to put a pipe in a culvert.
Absolutely.
'Cause it's-
Especially if it's exposing our utilities to the point where you're worried about jeopardizing that and whatever, so.
And
By
that-
putting the pipe in, will that get the cover you need back again?
Well, putting that 20-foot extension on is gonna give us what we need, but as far as overall appearance and safety of resident, like I said, once they're done with this, there's gonna be no shoulder. People are gonna go up that road.
You're gonna need a guardrail.
You're gonna need a
Yeah.
guardrail. It's bad. So I don't know if you guys drive by there, take a look at it, and as a city, see if you can force them to put a culvert in there, 'cause it's aggressive. I mean, it's more aggressive than you see out in the country. It's
I'll talk to the job superintendent, I'm sure he's gonna tell me he's gonna need a letter from us
And we-
asking that, but I think we should first start with one from the utilities, with the reasoning that you've exposed so much of our valving and
And-
our hydrant there that,
We
Either
talked,
you're gonna pay for alteration of that stuff, or you're gonna extend the pipe to get it.
and we talked to Victor. Victor's the general,
He's a superintendent.
or the superintendent, correct, that is overseeing the project. And we told him that he for sure needs the 20 foot, so he's putting in the 20 foot. And he goes, if the city tells us that we need to go the whole route, then they have no choice, and I'll tell them they have
Oh,
to
good.
do it. So
Good. So
he's
you
on
already
board
did-
with it. He
You
just
already
need-
did my legwork for me.
He just needs from the city,
Yep.
but he's
Wow.
for sure putting in the 20 feet for the utilities, cause we told him that it can't stay that way. And so he's doing that for sure, but if the city can get him the ball and just make contact with him and tell him if he,
So how much more?
I think it was 175 feet.
Additional?
No, I think it was total. I would have to wheel it off. I can call you in the morning and tell you
Yeah,
for
do
sure.
that, you know. In fact, the owner, well, maybe not, owner was in town last week, you know, here we are Monday already, so, yeah, from
I'll wheel
Michigan,
it off
so
and make contact with
shouldn't
you.
be any problem.
Want a letter from the utility?
Well, let me do the first, approach. Nick will get me the costs, or get me the
Wage,
length, how
yeah.
much, what there's presently. He agreed to 20 feet, but he's also sees the need for the balance.
Yeah, and Victor does too. Victor says I have no
That's-
problem, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He sees the need for the balance.
Correct.
Then there shouldn't be an issue.
Correct. So, like I said, yeah, we're just waiting on United Electric now to finish up their end, but it turned out good. Animex's new transformer, well, wasn't their transformer, our spare that we now have wired up. We got all the metering equipment installed on it, and it's ready to go. So we're just waiting on United again, to give us the green light to install that, because I think they're waiting on the step down transformer, for that. And with what you guys have heard already, lead times are pretty ridiculous right now. I just got an email last week, or 2 weeks ago. Transformers are now up to 52-week lead times.
Yeah,
so a
I
year.
just told my boss at work that too.
So we are, even though I had on the budget for that $58,000, that was already purchased probably 2 months ago, because I knew it was gonna be this long. So our transformers are ordered for next year. Thankfully I did it 2 months ago, because they're not taking any new orders for the remainder of the year. We talked a little bit about the Christmas decorations already. Got the outlets from Scott. They're all mocked up and ready to go. That way it's just screwing them to the pole and crimping on, and we'll move to the next one. Like I said, I project 15 minutes, 20 minutes most at each pole. Sold the digger derrick for a whopping $5,150. It went on auction 3 separate times, because I kept deferring the awarding, or I deferred the awarding bid, because the first one came back at $3,000. The second one came back at $3,800. So I put it on one more time, and I prolonged the duration of how long it was out there, even though they don't suggest doing that, because then the more and more people see it, they start to deter away from that piece of equipment. So we awarded, we received the payments. It should be coming electronically, right? We set it up that way.
Yes.
I got an email saying that the payment was made, so I'm just waiting for the phone call from the person that purchased it to pick it up.
How much was it that we got?
5,150. And looking up on the past 3 years sales on as old of a piece of equipment like that, highest end we were gonna see was gonna be $6,500. That's on the high end. So I guess that's the price we take for, I don't know what we bought it used for.
We had a better one than what we got when that one got wrecked in a bus versus
My
digger derrick.
grandma versus digger derrick.
That's right. I didn't say anything.
No, but anyways, it sold for $5,150 and, it did everything we needed it to. It was just, like I said, it was becoming a maintenance issue and, so that'll be leaving the yard soon. Highland Street project is moving along well now, with Cooks. They ran into a lot of rock issues on the south block section, the hillside. I did call Jason Lau just to make sure that we had some kind of verbiage in the bids for rock removal because they basically weren't able to bore anything in that south section. They had to trench everything, cut through driveways, and do it that route. But now that they're out of that section, they got all that in. The north block is going extremely well, and they should be done boring and putting pipe in by the end of this week, and then they'll be wrapped up placing the hand holes and pulling in wire the following week. Want to bring up that there's the lead lateral replacement grant money that's going around. The utility office just got a lead lateral, so we should probably get our application in to get that replaced and lead by example type of a thing. I don't know if it needs discussion or approval because it's going to be funded money. But I just thought I would bring that up today to see if we can just move ahead with it.
Is it certain that we as a government entity would be able to?
Yeah, Sean looked into it.
My only question would be, is that a sampling point for our water system?
I don't know, is it?
Is that one of our, that's a Peter question. Is that one of our lead service sampling points?
I'm not sure.
That's the most reliable sampling point we have, because we can take the sample. But that's the only reason I'd say no.
Well, that
Well, I
would be
think
a reason
yeah.
to keep it in there.
Yeah, I don't think that would be the whole point of us replacing it. Is to
Get rid of the lead.
So,
Right,
yeah.
right. Just, so if we're required to sample or however this works with the DNR sampling lead laterals, it's convenient if we can sample our own samples. But
Yeah, cause that's coming up next year, we're having to do sequential sampling, and so if we could use that point, other than having to go into somebody else's house and make an appointment with them
Oh,
at
that.
their convenience, we could do it here.
it's on our own convenience, but it's just
Well, we can't do any action on it. We'd have to go till next month.
Well, so I was wondering if we had needed to even have action on it, because it's not gonna be,
It's no cost.
it's no cost to the utility. And the only reason I think we also shouldn't wait is because this funding's here, nothing's guaranteed down the road. If you're looking at a $5,000 lateral change for free, cause that's what the quotes have been coming back as, is $5,000. Our estimates from the residentials.
I suppose we should put ourselves on a list. Make sure we're there.
I mean, I get where you guys are at, but it seems counterproductive to hold off on replacing lead laterals just for a testing point.
Well, we should, as you said, we should lead by example.
And we do have, I mean, I don't drink much water here, but we have employees that didn't know it was lead and now they, don't wanna be drinking the water, so. There's a water filtration system over there right now, so, like I said, I think we should be leading by example. We have grant money available. And, at a minimum, I'll at least call, contractor and get a quote, for that, because we need to submit a quote for that application, and the application deadline is December.
No, we don't, we have the work done and then the invoice, the plumber's invoice comes back to us with, the paperwork.
Okay.
There's 2 pages of paperwork, whatever. And then we just submit that to the DNR and they pay the plumber directly.
So, what what type of paperwork has to be completed before a certain date? Just the plumber
Nothing.
does?
You're right,
Nothing?
the work has to be done and invoiced by
Yeah.
December 8th.
That timeframe is so tight.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm surprised anybody was submitting them, because there's no way. We had inquired about 3 different excavators, and they all laughed. They said, we got work up until the ground is
Seems
hard.
like there's
and whatever."
one contractor that's
PHE,
PHE that's doing it, so,
He must be hooked up with an excavator.
yeah.
Yeah, he is.
So if he's in town doing them, maybe we can sneak it in before then. I'll reach out to him and get some more information and go from there
Okay.
then. That's all I got.
Anybody have any questions for Nick? All right, Peter.
Alright, well, I talked earlier about the 2 quotes that I have from Train, one for labor and materials for boiler maintenance and cleaning of one Kiwani boiler, and then integrating the Kiwani boiler into the system we have now. So the one for the cleaning of the boiler is $4,337, and the one for integrating it is $6,676. So I don't know what you want to do with them.
How much is the integrated one?
The integrated one is $6,676.
About $11,000.
Yeah, total for both of them. So
Yeah, well, I think they were thinking possibly new boiler,
Yeah,
but
that's
if
what
he's
it is.
telling me what the boiler is, that thing should last probably 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do, but
And but you have to upgrade the electronics in them to do that. I mean,
Well, then-
and plus it would make it a lot more efficient.
Is it easier for us to budget and replace it, or when it springs a leak in 10 years, say, where's this $100,000 coming from?
well, I don't know where $100,000 would come for a boiler.
Or however, you know,
Yeah.
fake number, but still.
But these
Is it
new
easy to
boilers,
budget for?
the new boilers are gonna promote a low mass boiler there, where you're just percolating a
Right.
gallon of water
So
with inside the
my-
system rather
My
than.
question too, with integrating it so it goes on and off, it's a process to heat this high mass boiler up with the pressure regulation and everything else. I don't know if that's included with, I'm assuming, this quote, but it doesn't just turn on and off, so I don't know how
No,
he
no,
plans to do
yeah,
it.
well, no, you want a boiler, the boiler would run pretty much all the time, I would expect.
that's pretty much what it does. He
That's
said
what it
you
is
turn it
now,
on in the
yeah.
fall and turn it off in the spring.
And you control it by
The pumps.
the pumps.
They
Right.
get pumps in there.
Correct. So that's,
And if it, I don't know, does it have a tank that, I mean, does it
Yeah.
have a water tank
has an
with it?
expansion tank, yeah.
Yeah, so,
They got some huge piping throughout the whole plant there, so that's the reason that it takes a day to heat that whole system up.
Yeah.
But the only reason that they're turning it on in there, it doesn't have spark ignition or whatever, it's got a standing pilot on it, right?
It's just spark ignition.
Okay.
it should be, even if you're telling me 84, it should have a spark ignition.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay.
So I just, as an operator, I
70s,
don't.
not so much, but by the 80s, they were putting spark ignition on that stuff.
I don't know if I see that kind of money for that right now, personally.
They must be planning on boiling it out for the $4,400. They must be acid treating it or
I'm not
something.
Something, cause that seems high for
Yeah.
cleaning and
Cleaning, yeah.
maintaining.
Well, it's train though.
So that's,
Well,
me and Peter talked about just getting different quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would maybe try and get some different quotes.
Because Surefire did it 3 years ago, and I think it was like $1,200.
didn't Clucker clean that?
Well, Keith Bobby told me to work on it,
Okay.
but like that, that's what was after.
Yeah, train's expensive.
But Keith is on business, so.
Yeah, this Surefire was like $820 something dollars.
You could try Clucker too, they're in town here all the time. Watertown, they maintain the system here.
Yeah.
So what, they do acid washing on them, or how does that work?
I'm thinking if at $4,400, they're almost boiling the thing all out and whatever, cleaning the scale
So
up
they're
on
taking
them.
scale on the whole
Yeah,
combustion.
I'm
or
thinking.
the whole
What
Not
else
just
would
the
you
fire
do?
side, the
What else
water
would you
side.
do for yeah? Well, what
Right.
would you do for $4,400 otherwise?
That's
you know?
what I
I mean,
thought.
There was no description on it, but.
Not really, no.
Train does the control, Train has all the other
We
controls.
have, they have the controls, yeah.
Yeah, and
And
you
it's
gotta
the
use Train for
controls
the,
that were
And it's
yeah,
all-
Train
it-
controls, you gotta use Train for the controls.
It's LP
Yeah.
fired, so the thing is clean. It's not like you're dealing with an
No,
oil
it's
burner or
not.
anything
No,
like that, where
it's
you
not
got an
methane or
ignition
anything either, yeah.
blow burner motor and everything else on it. So
I,
yeah,
I would wait.
I get a couple more quotes, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
and see what they think, and then we'll decide on the controls at a later date.
Ask them for an honest opinion on the boiler. They're all gonna wanna sell you one. There's no two ways about that.
All right, and then last month we, with the budget being passed, we had in there a corrosion control treatment study, and we're gonna be working with, CBS squared, cause they had the lowest bid, working with them and Dave Jensma from Martel Water and, Keras Chemical. And Keras Chemical, has agreed to do to pay for the cost of the sequential testing, which is gonna be between $3,000 and $5,000, so that's something we won't have to worry about paying for. So right now I'm just waiting for Jeff to get me the draft of the work schedule prior to the meeting that we're having with the DNR at the end of January. And on to well 3, last in September we had 3 fail to start alarms, and October we had 4 alarms also. I contacted Marty from Municipal Well, and he's telling me that the new cabinet for the VFD for well 3 should be here first part of December, and he said the one for well 1 won't get here until March of next year, so I'm not sure why that one's taking longer, but then the FE pump on the north side, the final effluent pump that we use for plant water and seal water for the influent pumps was making a noise. Alex and I pulled the pump out. We tried to pull it out all the way, but with that gantry crane, we weren't able to pull it all the way out. So we got a hold of Sobel, and they came out to pull it the rest of the way out, and they took it with them to diagnose what the problem might be. So, but that pump was initially installed in 2001. So we're transitioning to winter operations. Peggy is on leave for 6 weeks, and Liz has taken over lab duties, and she's doing really well. So that's all I got.
You got, did you talk about number 2 here?
So that's one of the bids, I
That's one
guess.
of the-
Well, that was the other bid.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind,
All
sorry.
right.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions for Peter? Just touching upon that lead replacement, talked to Sean too on that, and he says we are ranked very high on getting funding next year. We've only got like 75,000 this year, and that number would be quite a bit larger next year, you know, so I guess 75, of course, 5 seems high for a dig like what you'd have out here. I mean, this one you can almost hand dig from the building to the sidewalk, you know, you don't have 20 feet of pipe there, you know, to be able to go
The
from
main
the
to
shut
this
off.
side of the
No.
street.
I questioned that right away, and why that wasn't changed, but that was in between utility commissions at that time, you know, why that wasn't taken care of at the time they did
I
the
was
street
thinking the
project.
same thing when, cause I didn't know it was lead, and
Yeah, I did.
I went down there and I'm like,
Yeah, it looks good.
I couldn't believe it wasn't replaced when the road
Yeah.
project happened, so.
Do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah, right.
All right, other than, okay, anything, so, for myself, I did the training last week? Yeah. For
Yes.
WPPI, it was interesting to see how they buy and sell power. it's an hour and a half of, no, 2 hours.
Yeah, it was 2 hours.
2 hours of Val talking. And it was information was good, but it got a little boring after a while. But now there's gonna be 2 more sessions to have, training.
Bart,
That'll be
if you
feedback.
get an opportunity, you should try to schedule, take a trip down there. You would enjoy it to see how that all works.
I don't,
They do a,
they're not doing
Introductory?
the
It's
introductory.
all virtual, isn't it?
It's all virtual.
Oh. yeah.
But you still get to see, that control room that's the
Maybe.
coolest part.
I'll call down there once and see if they can get a,
Yeah, you don't need a skip, they don't need to have a certain.
should be having
You can do it at any
a
time.
recording of it.
Yeah.
That to me wouldn't be the same.
That would be, no,
No, it's definitely not, but.
It's not when you see that guy sitting there looking at four or five screens and they're, oh yeah, this one goes here and then, okay. It's amazing to watch. But I would,
Kinda like the NFL trade all year long, all day long.
I'll talk to Eric next time he's in here and maybe just see if they do, individual members.
I know that one time they talked about us having to go down for a meeting down there, have our utility meeting down there.
It would be well worth the while to take that, if you guys got the opportunity to do it, do it. I mean, if there's,
It is-
any time they take you through that, give you a tour of the whole facility down there, it's well worth going to.
You guys haven't gone in. I think they got one coming up, what is it, November 3rd?
Yeah, it's sometime this week, yeah.
what's
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
So, I mean, you can just, I don't know, get on and watch it. It is interesting. It's well worth the time. So, that's all I have. Mr. Mayor?
Just got the one item as you see written, we got a situation right here in our backyard. This little house that's just west of our facility here, our Nick's storage yard. That little house has its water and sewer running through the house in front. It was many years ago that house was built by the owner of the front building on East Oak Grove Street there. And that was a quick fix to get water and sewer to the new building or to the new house behind it. Well, since we did Fair Street, I brought it to our attention of our engineer that of this situation where we have water and sewer going through one residence to another, and of course that's completely against PSC rules and general plumbing, Wisconsin State Plumbing Code and what have you. So they've had, when Fair Street was done, they've had a water and sewer lateral available to them in their front yard since I was told 2005. I didn't think it was that far back, but anyway, I think it's gonna be up to this utility commission to send them a letter notifying them of the owner of the property no longer wants their water and sewer running through his building. That
So is
they've
it-
had plenty of time
so
to
is it-
execute and get it tied on to.
Is it teed in the basement? The lateral just comes through his.
Valved, separate valve down there and what have you. Like
In
he
his
said,
basement?
like he said that if they shut off his water in the front there, he'd wind up losing, it must be split ahead of the meter if I remember right. I haven't been down there in a while there, but yeah, the sewer lateral, it must have very little cover going out to that house because it's at about chest height down in that basement where it goes out to the other house, so. But he's had more than adequate time to tie onto that facility, you know, what have you, so I guess it's up to this body to send notice to him that says, hey, you know, we've had a complaint about the property owners, you know, that owns the property ahead of you, no longer wants your water and sewer running through his basement to get to you.
his rights just to turn it off?
Well, I don't think you can do that. We ran into that situation many years ago with another building in town where, again, the owner of the building built the house next door or whatever and jumped from one building to the other, and we didn't have water and sewer available to him, so we actually had to foot the bill to go out to the main and actually tie water and sewer laterals on to bring them into his property and whatever, so. Lori, did Jason Lau send you, I directed him to send,
Yeah, he sent the letter that was a sample that we should be able to use.
do we have that available, or?
I don't, yes, I can go print it up real quick.
Yeah, if you would.
Sure.
But I guess, that's the long and the short of it. I mean, there's a case where, like I said, he said if I had a, non-payment or I had a tenant that wouldn't pay, and they had to go and shut off the water, and you'd ultimately lose the water in the back building, so. So, and is a rental property. That,
Yeah, and that
The
that
first
would,
one's a
the first bu-
duplex.
Yes, the first one has a duplex there. So it's only good practice that, you know, that we get that executed so that he shouldn't have to put up with that, so. Made Peter aware of it, I made Alex aware of it, and also Nick aware of it.
And I was on the phone with the owner this afternoon, he was very concerned.
so is it a
So-
new owner?
No, he's had this building for quite a while, and, he had family living in it. Now I think he might not have any family anymore living in it, so, you know, I think he
In the
felt
front?
he could monitor it a little closer about paying utility bills and whatever, and.
In the front building?
What?
The back building, the one used to be owned by Agreement.
Yeah, both buildings were both,
Yeah.
that's how it got tied together.
Yeah.
There was no water and sewer available to him on the front, on Fair Street, fronting the little house here, which happened to be his mother's house
Mhm.
and whatever, so.
'Cause
So
I
it was a
know-
quick fix to get it done, to get it up and running. I'm sure there was some promise that, oh, someday when the city redoes the street, you know, we'll have water and sewer down by, you can do it upright. But in the interim, like I said, there gotta be very little cover, as far as ground cover over that sewer lateral that goes back. I don't know how the water is handled,
But there is a water and sewer stub lateral.
into his property, into the property that we're talking about right now.
Right, okay.
In fact, I questioned at that time, they actually ran an 1.5-inch water service to that little house there. And
It's
did you
on-
get the as-bills as well, Peter?
It's an inch and a half?
It's
Yeah.
on our map as inch and a half, and I found the curb stop already, so.
I said at the time, I said, I said, why are you sending, well, the distance, I said, geez, I said, we've got well systems that go a lot farther with a 3/4-inch piece of pipe than that, you know, let alone a 1-inch pipe, then jump it up to 1.5 inches. But, yeah, there's 1.5 inches to the shut off, the as-bills even show it that. And Mike Lau said to me, you got pretty good memory. He says, you're right, it's 1.5 inches. I said, I questioned you about it at the time it was done, why we needed to spend that kind of money. And thank God we didn't have to put it in now, 1.5 inches copper. So did you get a copy of the as-bill? Jason Lau had sent me that as well.
No, I
I
don't
can
think
use
so.
my email, and on my other computer.
He's got the as-built at that intersection showing how it runs for the water and the sewer. There is actually a sewer stub down that far. I was mistaken when I told you guys I didn't think it went down that far. I guess we did continue it down far enough that his property was able to access the sewer. It's only like a 20-foot lateral. But the water goes all the way up to, I think it crosses and ties onto the water main. I think the water main's on the north side of East Oak Grove Street. I think it's tied on, but just ahead of the Historical Society down there, if I remember how the map looked. But there's actually, he actually sent me an as-built. I thought you were gonna send that to us, or maybe you guys that for discussion here tonight.
So how does that work then? If you send the owner notice?
So many days to get it done,
Yeah.
it is time.
She can't get the sheet.
I can't get to my email.
Email's not cooperating because she's logged into this computer and she can't access it at that computer. But you guys
I
can get
can-
directive to.
Absolutely.
What's a reasonable time to get it done?
Now you're pushing the envelope for time frame for the winter here, you know,
I know.
yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
have to be lead services.
No, it's copper, it's 3/4-inch copper, if I remember right, that runs through the one building to get to the other. But it's just cast, going for cast iron, going from one building to the other. I don't know, you're gonna
I'll
get
spring 'em
some
next year.
opposition from them, I know that's gonna happen, that's general
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah.
So I guess,
Come spring
give him a
next year.
90-day period or something like that and see what he's got to say, and if he comes back I think it'd be reasonable for this utility to extend till spring, but we're gonna have to explain that to the property owner that's got it running through his basement, that, hey, it's a little unrealistic to get somebody on board to be able to dig this fast with winter approaching, but I don't know.
And maybe the PSC, we should take a look at that PSC though, they might already have
Some verbiage
some
in there.
verbiage on that,
Yeah.
that timeframe. So, you guys can give the directive, but we can
Yeah.
figure out the rest then, as far as.
He did have to pay, that was also in there. He did have to pay something towards that water and sewer lateral to get it up to his property. It wasn't much, $685 or something like that. That was all in that same letter. And Jason did come through with the as-built, so you got all the evidence you need to send to him, you know, when you can bring it up
Yeah.
and what have you, but, I'll go along with Nick, if there's some verbiage in our present, public service rules for our utility that gives a time frame on allowance. Most commonly, 60 to 90 days is usually when you find a violation of that type or something like that. But, I guess it's just something that we should, he called me, I've commonly done work for him and whatever, and, he called me to express his concern, and he says, that must be 10 years or better, isn't it, since they did that street? You know, to get that swung over. I didn't think it was that long, but, it still doesn't seem right. Fair Street hasn't been done that long ago. 2005,
16.
that's a long time.
Well, it was definitely before 2013, so.
That's when you were here? Okay. I would've said like 2012, 2010 or something like that, but I didn't think it was that long back, but just didn't seem like it was that long ago that we had Ron Dressen hollering about the restoration in the boulevards on that project, so, but time flies by, so.
When you're having fun.
I can forward that email from Jason to all you guys so you can have it.
Yeah, if you would. But Jason was very helpful. I commend Jason's performance with MSA. You ask for something, you get it almost the next day and whatever.
Yeah,
He's-
sure do.
He's very cordial about getting his stuff. I told him he might have to pick his dad's brain a little bit about this and whatever, and, he did talk him over, and he did respond back to me about getting the paperwork out. And I have it on my computer at home, but I just didn't think about printing it. I thought they were all gonna have it here today
Yeah,
already, so.
I think I just dropped the ball on that one.
Other than that, they just wanna make sure we keep pushing away at the Sensient contract, guys. It's long overdue, and it's affecting this utility financially, terribly affecting this utility financially. I think there was good conversation on our facility study there. I think that there's all good merits in our comments here. I don't wanna cheap out on it by any means, but, I think we gotta make this affordable, because that's gonna be a hell of a hit for every user in our system. You know,
$25 a month.
to pay that, you know, so,
Yeah, that's like a 50% increase on,
yeah.
close to it.
And any way you can eke it in, the better off you are. Now, I guess we've got approval for this, my quote, "stop the bleeding" proposal, but maybe we even have to step that up a little bit to try and buy some, you know. Cause this is gonna be a major hit for every consumer here in town. And I would be surprised if we didn't have standing room only for something like this, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's time of year you can, but I don't like that, and you don't wanna hear the phone calls that will be coming into this office after that first price hike, first bill that comes through.
Kylie would leave.
That's what, Kylie gets those.
Oh, okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Do we need to,
Should we make a motion and,
Do you have to? That's just a utility.
all I'm saying is, it says take possible action, so
Yeah.
I don't think you need to.
we don't
Let's
have
just-
to.
I guess if you wanna take action on what's legally allowed, the direction, and as far as the amount of time frame, I think we're all in agreement it's gotta be done,
Yeah.
whatever. And
I mean,
guess
to
you go-
notify the homeowner?
Yes, but I think we should have that verbiage in there. There'll be sections of our municipal code or our public service code that allows us to give you X amount of days to correct this condition unless there's circumstances that beyond your control. Like I said, as tough as it is right now, finding an excavator that'll even work for you, you know, it's another
Yeah.
story, so.
Well, I would make that motion. I don't know all the legal stuff that you're just talking about, but I would make that motion.
Motion to make the directive to.
Yeah, to notify the homeowner that,
Yeah, with the directive
With
from
the-
PSC
yeah.
or our own utility
following the rules that
Yep.
we have to follow.
that are binding.
Yeah, make something up.
Jason's got a pretty good letter there that's going to be.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Dick, second by Bart, to send a motion to the homeowner to make arrangements for water and sewer connections according to code. So, is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Any old business? Any new business? I will accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ross,
Second.
second by Bart, to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We are adjourned.